Welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday, October 18th, 2011 broadcast of the Infowars Nightly News. I'm Aaron Dyke, sitting in again for Alex while he's still out on assignment. He'll be back later this week. We have a jam-packed broadcast tonight. Coming up, we have Russell Means, the chief facilitator of the Republic of Lakota, with an update on his personal health struggles, as well as the wider conspiracy within the cancer industry. And then after that, Alex Jones himself joins us via Skype for an update on a number of issues, including the Fast and Furious scandal that continues to unfold. In the news, we do have Attorney General Eric Holder continuing to dodge questions in relation to the investigation of Fast and Furious, now denying to answer as to whether or not there was a third gun involved in the shooting of border agent Brian Terry. Meanwhile, he accuses ISSA of mischaracterizing evidence in the probe of Operation Fast and Furious in relation to that potential third weapon. Meanwhile, ISSA himself has had to acknowledge that the Bush administration had its own prior version of Fast and Furious, nearly identical, in which it shipped weapons south. Feds traffic guns to suspected criminals under Bush, Paul Joseph Watson writes. The ATF allowed firearms to walk under previous incarnation of Fast and Furious. Darrell Issa told CBS's Face the Nation that we know that under the Bush administration there were similar operations, but they were coordinated with Mexico. They made every effort to keep their eyes on the weapons the whole time. So we're not per se saying that gun trafficking, tracing weapons is a bad idea. He said that on October 16th, 2011. Let's go to that clip right now.
And again, we know that under the Bush administration, there were similar operations, but they were coordinated with Mexico. They made every effort to keep their eyes on the weapons the whole time. So we're not per se saying that tracing weapons is a bad idea.
Well, Cheryl, what do you make of this?
This whole scandal is really part of the black ops underside of what the government's been doing for decades and decades. There's a reason why it has so many similarities to the Iran-Contra scandal, where they smuggled weapons to various operations south of the border in return for shipping in drugs so they could support black ops around the world, as they continue to do here. In this particular case, they're using the drug cartels as a smokescreen, as a pretext for a wider border operation, including parts of the North American Union agenda, as well as, of course, to demonize the Second Amendment. I just thought I would bring into the conversation a quote from Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the top globalists. In his book, Between Two Ages, he writes that a characteristic feature of concentrated humanity is the routinization of conflict. Direct violence becomes increasingly regulated and restricted, and ultimately comes to be considered a deviation from the norm. Organized mechanisms in the form of uniformed, salaried personnel are established to confine violence to socially tolerable limits. A certain measure of crime, however, is accepted as unavoidable. For the sake of order, therefore, organized crime is generally preferred to anarchic violence, thus indirectly and informally becoming an extension of the order. That's right. He wrote in the 70s about how organized crime is part of the larger order, the New World Order, the world government who are running things today. Just very interesting to put into perspective. Now, in other news, there's a piece that's come out of the BBC from a government think tank front group, actually a Marxist group called Demos. And they're sort of re-educating and brainwashing children that they can't believe things they read on the internet, particularly targeting conspiracy theories and trying to train them that only government-issued information, official information, is trustworthy. That headline is Government Front Group Vows to Abolish Critical Thinking. Marxist-founded Demos is terrified that children are questioning the establishment. Let's play part of that clip right now.
Teachers are increasingly finding that their pupils are bringing into the classroom conspiracy theories, misinformation, propaganda that they found on the internet. And what I think that means is that young people aren't really being taught enough about how to critically assess and evaluate the information that they're finding online.
Demos want digital judgment to be a core part of the curriculum. They say teachers need the training and resources to do that.
And this is an attempt just to keep the big lie under wraps, not only in regards to 9/11, course, you can see the rest of that clip on Infowars.com. They have people talking about various aspects of the 9/11 conspiracy theory that they supposedly read online, that they're trying to train them isn't trustworthy. It applies to all sorts of information, and it really relates directly to the kinds of things that Obama's information czar, Cass Sunstein, wrote about in his white paper, Conspiracy Theories, where he directly advocates infiltrating conspiracy groups in trying to undermine the information, which he admits is very significant and poses a threat to the establishment. That's because free-thinking people can figure out that a big lie is just that, but they want to try to indoctrinate, especially the youth, to not respect that information and began to believe the establishment once again. Now you've seen textbooks kind of teaching the official version of 9/11, and we've even had reports that children as young as first grade are being taught the official version of 9/11 in the classroom, a very traumatic event, which has a big impact, being taught to them really as early as possible. So we want to keep an eye on that. We're going to cover it more tomorrow. But Cass Sunstein directly wrote this quote right here: "Our principal claim here involves the potential value of cognitive infiltration of extremist groups designed to introduce informational diversity into such groups and to expose indefensible conspiracy theories as such." Obviously, it has nothing to do with the validity of various claims. Of course, not everything that falls under the conspiracy theory category is true, but they're obviously trying to prop up propaganda. We want to remind you about the November 3rd money bomb. The Infowars is launching another effort to help support our operation and spread the word. We're, of course, not corporate funded. There it is, November 3rd, 2011. Alex is going to do another marathon 24-hour broadcast, including many special guests and pre-recorded interviews as well. So we hope you'll join him, help support the Infowar, and of course, spread the word about this broadcast. We'll be back in a moment with more news information and 2 powerful interviews after this break. Stay tuned for the Infowars Nightly News.
If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the Infowars store at Infowars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe Infowars t-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at Infowars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there, wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens, it's all there. Infowars.com.
This is a test of the emergency alert system.
Executive Order 10,995 allows the government to seize and control the communication media.
Our nation is at war against a far-reaching network of violence and hatred. Training camps have been struck, leaders eliminated, plots disrupted. And all those involved in the attempted act of terrorism must know you too will be held to account.
Think about it. 15 years ago, we allowed the federal government to hardwire emergency takeover systems of all major communications and media in the United States. Now the federal government's coming out in the open and admitting what was already in their internal documents, that they're going to begin having federal break-ins over local news.
And that is, of course, a short clip from a much longer YouTube video Alex shot back in February 2011. It's up on the YouTube channel as long as they don't take it down. We have been under attack. It's called Obama Launches Total Takeover of Media. And we are talking about new emergency alert systems, which FEMA plans to test November 9th nationally for the first time ever. And Kurt Nimmo writes extensively about how that is linked to larger martial law takeover plans, even as it may seem rather innocuous. It is part of the, quote, civil takeover. Under Reagan, FEMA mutated civil defense planning into a military police version of civil society, a plan on collision course with posse comitatus. The new national EAS system is designed for a more significant event that conforms to the implementation of martial law as envisioned under Garden Plot and Cable Splicer, a plan nearly revealed when Representative Jack Brooks of Texas grilled Oliver North during the Iran-Contra hearings of 1987. And there is, of course, a much, much larger continuity of government takeover plan, which they want to do as softly as possible. They don't want to scare everyone. They want to make it seem quite normal. It's also covered extensively in the powerful film Police State 4, released in April 2010. In other news, more than 20 radioactive hotspots have now been identified in Tokyo. And of course, they were identified by independent citizens using Geiger counters long before it was admitted by the government, who continue to deny and obfuscate all the dangerous things going on in the continued Fukushima fallout. That was Washington's blog reporting on the New York Times. Radioactive substances are entering people's bodies from the air, from the food. It's everywhere, said Kiyoshi Todo, a radiation expert at Nagasaki University's Faculty of Environmental Studies. But the government doesn't even try to inform the public how much radiation they're exposed to. That is an understatement. And the article goes on to discuss how of 132 areas tested near Tokyo and the other similar cities, 22 were above Chernobyl levels, which were considered contaminated. Just discussing, and you've heard from other sources how as many as 30 million people who are able to have evacuated Tokyo because people know what's going on, even as the government continues to deny and refuse to warn people as they should. In other news of how government can't and won't protect you, LAPD's SWAT guns were stolen. Police officials confirmed that more than 30 firearms stored overnight at a building considered secure were stolen. It's embarrassing, a lesson learned, they said. But of course, all these authorities just want to appear to be, omnipotent when, of course, they are not. Similarly, Obama's teleprompter and lots of other communications equipment were stolen by thieves in a truck, just more revealing how the Wizard of Oz is just a man behind the curtain, that the president is nothing more than a puppet. What, of course, will he say without his teleprompter? Infowars Nightly News remains teleprompter free, even though it has its occasional technical errors. Now, nearly a third of Occupy protesters have been found in a poll to advocate violence. That is a PSB polling firm who spoke to, I believe, 200 or more people who supported concentrating force into the hands of government and who specifically supported using violence to enforce their ideas. Nearly one-third, 31%, said they would support violence to advance their agenda. And that really is the definition of socialism, using force to implement. We have a clip now from Adam Kokesh that just reiterates this. He's been speaking, of course, to Occupy protesters all across the country, and particularly in the D.C. area. Let's go to that now.
To make them pay for things that they don't want.
I think that the threat of force can be separated from violence.
But is the threat of force any more morally acceptable?
Yes, I believe it can.
So threatening force is okay, but actually carrying out force is not okay?
That depends on the context.
So threatening force is okay if...
for example, if a crime were about to take place and I threatened force, and it prevented the crime from taking place, that would be a justification for the use of force.
I'm an IRS agent, and I'm threatening to put you in a cage if you don't give me 30% of your income. Is that a justified threat of force?
Yes.
That is a scary, dangerous, anti-freedom, violent idea.
And there's a longer clip you could see up at Infowars.com where he talks extensively to this man. But it really speaks for itself to say an IRS agent putting a gun to your head is acceptable for the public good, for the greater good. In other related news to the Occupy Wall Street movement that continues, Obama has essentially failed in his attempt to use the Occupy Wall Street as a diversionary smokescreen and a buoy for his 2012 election. A poll conducted and reported on at The Hill finds that a plurality believe the Occupy Wall Street movement will actually hurt Democrats and Obama in the 2012 election, even as they try to co-opt the energy of that movement. More than 7 in 10 conservatives blame Washington for the recession, while more than 5 in 10 liberals blame Wall Street. As much as Wall Street is to blame for so much of the corruption going on, and particularly the big six mega banks who operate with the Federal Reserve. Washington itself is completely corrupt, and everyone in the country knows it. There's massive righteous anger about it, and Obama is continuing to sink at the polls. In just a moment, we're going to